Hello everyone, and welcome to part 4 of a 9-part series where I'll be summarizing and giving my opinion on Life is Strange and Life is Strange Before the Storm. If you're new to this series, then I would suggest starting with my video on episode 1. Today we'll be going over episode 4 of Life is Strange, titled Dark Room. This refers to a room where traditional photographs are developed, called such because the rooms are poorly lit using only dim red light, as any exposure to bright light would compromise the integrity of the photo. I only explain this because we're in an age where digital photography has become the medium of choice for all but the most dedicated hobbyists, as well as the occasional retro geek. I'm looking at you, Max. We pick up shortly after where we left off in the previous episode. Chloe and Max are moving along the beach at sunset. I love the pre-twilight visuals on display in this scene. The clouds are seared tangerine by the golden sun, and the god rays filtering between the trees in the foreground make for a gorgeous sight. The sound of the ocean lapping at the shore and the seagulls crooning as they glide about also helps build a tranquil atmosphere that envelops the uncomfortable conversation the pair are having in a warm embrace that is intended to soften the blow. The decaying whales do detract on the beauty a bit, and I imagine the smell is none too pleasant either, however. I hate using the phrase awkward dialogue again to describe what's occurring here, as that sums up about half of Life is Strange's writing, but it's so accurate that I just have to take the shot. The awkward dialogue, that should be my catchphrase, here actually makes a lot of sense given the circumstances. If anything, I believe it actually adds to the scene. If you don't believe me, picture this. You finally get the chance to hang out with your closest friend after 5 years of not seeing them. Then, when you arrive at their house, you get completely blindsided by the fact that they're now paralyzed from the neck down. I imagine the conversation that would follow would be a bit uneasy to say the least. What really completes this interaction, though, is when Chloe says,
"Look, the worst thing you can do is treat me like a baby. I still want to laugh and talk shit with my best friend."
I imagine that someone in her situation would definitely get tired of people coddling them. She just wants to be a normal teenager, but that's nigh impossible for her. After the oceanside excursion, we arrive back at the Price house in Chloe's new room on the first floor, and the pair continue talking. One thing I didn't appreciate until my second playthrough is the change in Chloe's voice. She has a lot less energy now, and everything she says is tinged with a melancholy undertone. She sounds distinctly different without sounding like a completely different character. Chloe asks Max to get her water, giving the player their first opportunity in this episode to explore the game space. We get a smattering of information regarding Chloe's new life by interacting with objects found in her room. It becomes obvious that she's dependent on a lot of expensive equipment just for day-to-day living. There's also some clues that a little bit of the old Chloe is still there. After all, she's the same person, just living under drastically different circumstances. Once the player brings Chloe water, the pair talk, waxing nostalgic as they reminisce about simpler childhood days. They decide to cap off the night by watching Blade Runner, so the player must search the room for the DVD. Afterwards, a wordless cutscene plays showing the two watching the movie. The game cuts to the next morning with Max sleeping on Chloe's bed. After more conversation, Chloe reveals that she's in pain and needs her morphine kept in the bathroom upstairs. The player now has free reign over the whole house. When the player moves into the living room, they get a text from Victoria that further confirms they are now friends. There's also a text conversation I found noteworthy between Max and her mom that frames Max as being much more entitled now. I'm not sure how Chloe's father being alive could have caused this, but I think it's nice detail nonetheless. While we're roaming the household, we can speak with Chloe's dad, William, and he might just be the most genuine character in the whole game. I don't know if it's the writing or the voice acting or some combination thereof, but he really does feel like a goofy dad who cares deeply for his daughter. It's a perfect example of quality over quantity. When the player heads upstairs, they can also enter Chloe's old room, which is now being used as storage. There's a nice transition when you do this, as Max is reminded of the choice that led her here. There's no dialogue, but there's a trepid hesitation present in her body language as she crosses the threshold. It gives this sense that you're displaced in some strange version of the world you once knew. It's also the first time the game gives the player a sense of nostalgia, rather than the character. Whenever the player is ready to progress the main story, they can grab Chloe's morphine from the bathroom and bring it to her. After Max puts the morphine in Chloe's IV drip, Chloe asks Max to bring over her photo album. The pair flip through the book of old pictures with a sense of wistful longing. It's rather sad seeing that the main way Chloe is able to glean happiness is by looking back at the past, but wholly understandable. They reach the photo that William took the day he was supposed to be in the car crash, and Max contemplates altering the past yet again. As she does, Chloe interrupts her train of thought with a blunt statement about how her own life is coming to an end.
My respiratory system is failing, and it's only getting worse. I've heard the doctors talking about it when they thought I was zonked out. So, I know I'm just putting off the inevitable while my parents suffer along, and I will too. This isn't how I want things to end.
What? What are you saying?
I'm saying that being with you again has been so special. I just wanted to feel like when we were kids running around Arcadia Bay and everything was possible, and you made me feel that way today. I want this time with you to be my last memory. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
All you have to do is crank up the IV to 11.
Chloe, I really don't know if I can do this. I had another friend who wanted to end it all, and I did everything I could to try and save her life. How can I be responsible for ending yours? I mean, there's gotta be another way.
Max, you were there for your friend, no matter what. Now I'm asking you to help me the same way.
I want to help you, Chloe, but I think my help is hurting.
At least you have a choice. When you want to make a decision, you can just do it. Look at me. I'm at the mercy of everybody. For once, I want to make my own choice. The most important one of my life. Please. Help me, Max.
Chloe.
I'll just drift to sleep, dreaming of us here together. Forever. Thank you so much. I'm so proud of you for following your dreams. Don't forget about me.
Never.
I love you, Max. See you around.
Sooner than you think.
The scene managed to make me cry, and I can count on one hand the number of stories I've experienced that have managed to do so, including the traumatizing experience that was watching Lion King as a child. Max now decides it's better to change the timeline back to its original state. We jump back to the day William was fated to die in a car crash, in a rather moving scene wherein Max decides to burn the photo and leave the past alone. Max also has a touching monologue with Chloe before the past fades away.
Max, you are being so fucking strange. Like you're never gonna see us again.
Chloe, I'm so sorry. I tried to make things different for you. I did try. I'm sorry.
I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but come on. You have made things different, like my whole life. You're my best friend. I've got you and a great family. What's to be sorry for? We'll be best friends forever. And when we grow up, we're taking over the world.
Listen, whatever happens, I want you to be strong. Even if you feel like I wasn't there for you. Because I will never abandon you, Chloe. I'll always have your back. Always.
And that wraps up what I think is the single best section of the whole game. It's strange because this part is so divergent from the rest of the game, as what happens here has no effect on the main story. I'm sorry if I ripped too much dialogue straight from the game here. This part always just resonates with me, and I love sharing it. Max arrives back in her dorm room and quickly spots Chloe typing away on her computer. Max realizes she's back in the original timeline where Chloe isn't handicapped and takes a momentary breather before getting back to the task at hand. Max and Chloe must continue to gather more evidence from Frank, David, and Nathan so they can finally piece together enough proof to find out what happened to Rachel.
So close yet so
One thing I
far
noticed
away.
is that Max is wearing a black t-shirt
We have to do
with a
3
death
more
head moth
minutes.
on it.
Right.
I avoid placing too much stock in symbolism, but this appears to be exactly that, as it plays counter to Chloe's butterfly, and also references the way Max has been playing with life and death. After their discussion, Max's first task is to see what info she can gather from David's belongings. If you berated him like I did, then Max or went into David just as he's leaving to a hotel. What caught me off guard here is that David's not even angry, instead completely defeated. The brief exchange the two have here does a lot for his character, building on his complexity in a concise but powerful way. He also has a line I really like that calls back to the name of the episode and acts as a foreshadowing.
Better be damn careful with her. Don't you wander off into the dark.
There's a moment of calm, a term for those many cutscenes where some music plays and Max ruminates on recent events that the player can experience in the kitchen. Max mentally explores the possibility that she's actually entering other universes, or maybe even creating them. I'm glad the game remains vague regarding this. You see, after Inception was released, a lot of media seemed to have a keen interest in exploring obtuse, thickly layered, and interwoven narratives. It's a noble goal to have, but a difficult one to pull off with grace. See BioShock Infinite if you want an example of a messy, unnecessarily complex story. All in all, I'm glad Life is Strange only hints at the infinite universe theory, as it adds intrigue without muddying the core narrative. When the player proceeds to the garage, they may notice that David has taken his car. This gives the player new access to a row of lockers. Living up to their name, they are indeed locked, so the player must find a way to get them open. Apparently you can use the combination, but I chose to go off Gordon Freeman on that thing, because that's the most complex solution my caveman brain can handle. There's an unfinished letter in the garage that David wrote to Joyce if Max went off on David. I only mention this because Max says,
There's more to David Madsen than meets the eye.
and I could practically hear the developers whispering, subtle character development, as I listen to Max say this. Also, I feel like I've been giving the game too much praise lately, and I need to make sure it knows its place. Max grabs some surveillance info from the locker. If you saved Kate's life, then the pair's next stop will be the hospital to visit her. I was hoping you'd get some sort of alternate scene if you don't do so, but unfortunately that's not the case. If you are able to visit Kate, then you get a nice sweet moment where you can see her feeling much better about life and optimistic about her future. If Kate is no longer among the living, or you've already visited her, then the next stop is the Blackwell campus. As the pair enter the dorm area, they run into Mr. Jefferson, with whom they have a brief conversation, wherein the Vortex Club party is brought up. The objective for the player is to get info on the whereabouts of Nathan. The player can meander about the dorm area, speaking with various side characters to get their thoughts and opinions on recent events, as well as ask about Nathan. Eventually, we learn from Miss Grant that Nathan isn't around, giving us the green light to search his room. Once inside the boys' dorm, depending on circumstances, Max will receive a text from Kate that details Nathan's room, but it's easy enough to find regardless. Once inside, Max notices there's a lot of eerie paraphernalia in Nathan's room, including a very unsettling picture of Chloe. After thoroughly searching Nathan's room, Max finds a burner phone taped to the back of his couch. Clearly, this is what Nathan uses to set up his drug deals with Frank, so Max can now leave.
Before Nathan comes back.
As Max and Chloe are about to leave, Nathan arrives. He quickly realizes why the pair are there and becomes aggressive. Just as he's about to get physical, Warren shows up and headbutts Nathan. Nathan draws his handgun, but Warren knocks him down and begins kicking him. Max has the choice to intervene or let Warren continue. If you stymie his attack, then Nathan hobbles off, making typical rich boy threats. If you choose to let Warren finish what he started, then Warren proceeds to beat the shit out of Nathan. Nathan pathetically begs him to stop. After he does so, Chloe takes his gun and says to a bloodied and broken Nathan,
Who's the bitch now?
Chloe!
The final stop for Max and Chloe is Frank's RV. Frank's sales book is written using code language, so the goal here is to get him to give up the cipher. This scenario can play out a lot of different ways. The decisions preceding this moment which will affect the outcome here are, did Frank's dog get hurt at the diner? Does Chloe have the money from the school? And does Chloe have a gun? If Pompidou wasn't hit by the truck at the diner, then he will run out and try to attack Chloe if Max says the wrong thing. If Chloe is armed at this point, this results in her shooting Frank's dog as he runs out, and then gunning down Frank in a rather dark scene.
Get the fuck back now!
fucking killed my dog!
Oh no! Chloe. I just shot a man and his dog.
If Max rewinds time, she can ask Frank to close the door after this happens, preventing Pompidou from attempting to attack Chloe. She'll instead just injure Frank if he gets aggressive. If you give Frank the money Chloe owes him, then you can get away with one free mistake in this conversation. You can also just convince him that you want to find Rachel, which will get him to give up his cipher without anyone getting hurt.
My dog isn't barking at you, so I guess that's a good sign.
After you acquired all the necessary components to solve the mystery of where Rachel is, Max and Chloe head back to the Price household to put all the puzzle pieces together. The player must decide which clues they've gathered thus far are relevant enough to use. Ultimately, it comes down to finding where and when Nathan bought drugs the night of the party that Rachel disappeared.
Let me dig up some more clues here.
As it turns out, it's an isolated barn belonging to the Prescott estate. After some exploration and puzzling, the player eventually finds an obfuscated hatch, which they can open, revealing a hidden bunker. The key to opening the door completely baffled me on my first playthrough, but you're supposed to discern the code here based on the wear of the numbers. After the pair are inside, they see the bunker has been converted from something intended for survival to a photography studio of sorts. The room has a cold, clinical feeling to it, as everything is diffused with white fluorescent light. It acts in stark contrast to the warm tones presented throughout the rest of the game. Eventually, Max finds binders with the names of several characters written on the spines. The first is Victoria's, which is empty to the surprise of Max and Chloe. Next, they leaf through Kate's binder, which features disturbing pictures of her in various poses. Max realizes that Victoria is intended to be the next victim, just as they opened Rachel's binder.
Victoria has to be next. Nathan must be planning to dose her tonight at the Vortex Club party.
Rachel. This can't be real. These are all post shots, right? Right?
Chloe, look at her face. She's out of it.
Maybe Nathan paid her a shitload of cash to do this. She probably would have.
I don't think so. Why is he putting her in the ground like that? Where?
The junkyard. Max, we have to find that spot now. Then we can see what he did. There's no way she's dead. No way. She posed for those pictures, Max. I know it. Please, let's go.
Chloe, slow down! Wait for me!
I know exactly where I'm going. Look, this is it. This is it. Are you gonna help me, Max?
Chloe, stop! Look.
Please, no.
Oh, that smell!
Rachel! Oh, Rachel, no, please not her!
Chloe.
Rachel, why?
I'm sorry, Chloe. I'm so sorry.
I loved her so much. How can she be dead? What kind of world does this? Who does this?
Discovering that Rachel was dead the whole time the pair was searching for her was an emotional gut punch for me. I can't say that it was unexpected, but I wasn't sure the game would commit to such a dark story arc. As the camera pans away from Chloe and Max, we also see the ethereal doe from earlier in the game fade away. I had assumed up to this point the deer was meant to represent Max as being kind of a blank slate character, as in Jane Doe. She even has a shirt that labels her as such. But at this moment it became clear that it was intended to be a representation of Rachel's spirit, guiding them to the junkyard, hence why Max spotted it before. Jane Doe is also the term given to unknown females in police investigations. The game next cuts to a poorly illuminated parking lot, the sound of thudding bass carrying off from the distance, and the uninterpretable sound of drunken partying mixes with the ambient sound of cicadas. The pair sit in the truck, with Chloe hell-bent on avenging her friend. Once they leave her vehicle, Max notices there are 2 moons in the sky, but Chloe disregards the significance of this event.
The world is ending.
As the two head toward the party occurring in the gym, they run into an inebriated Warren. He asks Max for a picture, which, believe it or not, actually has plot relevance later.
Time for this shit. Come on.
Inside at the party, the player has to attempt to discern Nathan's location. As we enter the main party, I can't help but think how over the top this is for a high school event. I could picture this at a college, but this seems to be just one of several indicators that Life is Strange was meant to be set in a college at some point. If Nathan is at the end of the world party, then he'd clearly be in the VIP section. You can't just normally get in though, since you're not on the list. If you've managed to befriend Courtney, she'll help you out and get you in without a hitch. Otherwise, you'll have to sneak in. During this, Max accidentally knocks a speaker into the pool, causing everyone to get upset and forcing her to rewind after she moves past it. Now in the VIP area, the player can interact with some of the more popular Blackwell students. However, the only student who knows where Nathan might be is Victoria. The two go back and forth trading petty insults as Max tries to convince her how dangerous Nathan really is, and finally bury the hatchet with her. Eventually the player is presented with the choice of trying to warn Victoria about Nathan's darkroom, or just letting her carry on. Chloe shows up, and the two discern that Nathan isn't at the party. After this, Mr. Jefferson comes out and announces the Everyday Heroes contest winner is Victoria, and she makes a speech.
I'd like to dedicate this prize to the memory of Kate Marsh. She was the real everyday hero of Blackwell.
The pair leave the party, and Max gets a text from Nathan saying there won't be any evidence of Rachel left soon.
We have to go to the junkyard.
They wander the darkness through the labyrinthian piles of scrap, searching for any signs of intrusion. Eventually they reach the spot where Rachel's body was buried. Everything is just as it was before, and it appears as though this was a bluff from Nathan. Suddenly, a needle pierces Max's neck. She attempts to reverse time, but is unable to do so, because whatever drug she has been dosed with interferes with her ability. As Max collapses to the ground, she warns Chloe, but it's too late, as just as she turns around to engage the threat, she is shot. Chloe lays splayed out in a pool of blood as the perpetrator of the crime is revealed to be Mr. Jefferson. The credits then roll for the darkroom. And that's the end of episode 4 of Life is Strange. And you thought episode 3 ended on a cliffhanger. I'm not going to do any post-story commentary, as I don't want to drag this video on too long. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and please, feel free to leave feedback in the comments. Stay tuned for the 5th and final episode of Life is Strange. Thanks for watching.